Okay, that looks like it works. Hello, man. It's been a long time, and welcome back to another day in the painting realms, where Bill is struggling to figure out what to paint for
I
such an
am. I'm
occasion.
struggling real hard.
Yeah, and his
My wife
lovely
has
wife
brought me
is
over
picking out
Stormcast
models.
stuff, which was fine, and then I was like, "Get me maybe pick a Stormcast guy or a Chaos guy."
Yeah, his lovely
And
wife
she
is like,
brings
"Look at
over the
this
little
model," and
Bella
you're like,
card. It's like,
"No,
ah, no,
get out of
not
here."
doing that one.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Oh,
well, I'm
let's see.
finishing up my horrors for my Flesh Eater Court project. I'm gonna put paint on them, and I'm gonna see how far I go.
I'll find something.
Yeah, well, while you do that,
We'll be good.
yeah. Well, I just wanted to cold open and really put you on the spot, as a good friend would.
You sure did.
Mm-hmm.
No joke. So that guy's not bad. Maybe we'll do him.
I gotta mix the ever-living fuck out of this Vallejo paint. Supposed to be a silver,
Oh.
and it's really nice as like a
Hmm.
dropper, except for it
Yep.
unmixes so fast and
Oh, I
so
see.
aggressively.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, that's okay though. I think I'm mostly there. Yeah, there we go. But yeah,
Oh, kind of cool. We'll do him.
and who's that friendly fellow?
This friendly fellow is a one-page rules demon prince
Nice.
of the corn variety.
I really like their stuff.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We could do them too. Anyway, so what's the show about today, Alex?
Today we're going to be talking about fourth edition, and as GW pattern, it's probably coming out this year or next year around this time.
Yes, right.
And if they're doing any sort of preliminary research about what people like and dislike about the game, I figured around now would be the best time to get our opinion out there.
Yeah, there we go.
On the very off
Sure.
chance that somebody from GW is watching.
On the off chance that off chance, but,
literally anyone
okay.
is watching, on the account of we've been away for a month.
Yeah, it's true.
And it was like a month between the show before that. Yeah.
Yep.
Man, we're not good at this.
It's all right. Things happen.
Exactly. But anyway, yeah. So I thought it'd be a good show topic to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Give it a little bit of time. Overall though, I think this is a very positive addition for me. I had a lot of fun in it. I think.
Oh, sure.
How do you feel about it overall?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's been very good. The battle tomes have been. I mean, I guess up until maybe recently, they've been balanced enough, right?
Yeah, except for like the last 6 allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I gotta tell you, I lost 2 games so far with those books. One of them was against like Iron Jaws, and one of them was like at a tournament against one of my friends who's like extremely good at the game. And it was just like.
But otherwise, you've been doing nothing but win, 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 win.
Yeah, dude, zombies are fucked up. That whole book is actually the Soul Blight one.
Yep.
It's like, or like the OBR one, in my opinion, it's like mostly a fair book, except for like the Stalkers and the Immortus Guard are severely overtuned.
Yeah, I think we kind of looked at them and thought they might be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we did the lightning round, and we were like, oh, zombies are way better. I think we failed to realize exactly how way better they are.
I mean, you can only do so much at a first take, right?
Yeah, exactly. But dude, like, I was playing against one of my friends who's like learning the game, and I had like a minimum size unit of zombies, and he charged it with the Bastiladon, like like the asshole with a 2-up save forever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he charged into the zombies and fucking died, and then the zombies were fine.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my word.
And it's just like, because the zombies don't do any melee damage, but you don't care, because like he comes in, he kills like 10 of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he takes like 4 or 5 damage back. I do like 1 damage in melee. That's almost half. And then I just return them with my.
Oh, and he literally just can't. You just can't get rid of him unless you get rid of him in one go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just like on a 4-up or a 3-up on my turn, I bring them back outside of 3. I think I did say I was very concerned about the power level of that book in that review. And I was proven to be correct.
Yeah, sounds
The
like it.
book is, I think it's like a 64% win rate right now.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, so they made a mistake.
Yep.
Some of the stuff that KO can do is like absurdly good too. Like the
Yeah, that
alpha.
one's really hard to judge until you see it in action, but yeah.
Yeah. But I was watching a game that Hey Wo did on Tabletop Simulator, and
Mhm.
like the guy just like because he plays the ogres, it was like ogres with Kragnos, so he has like absolutely no screens, right?
Yeah.
And the guy just like flies in exactly where he wants to be, and he just like lifts Kragnos and like almost another Stonehorn off the table.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just like, well, if he got like an early double, he could have like completely spanked the KO out of the sky. But he didn't. He got alphaed very hard, you know?
Yeah.
But like I guess that is an alpha book at the end of the day. We failed to realize though, because when we're talking about spell in the bottle, we're like, oh man, like I think you take Purple Sun with this, right? We're like, yeah. No, you take Soul Scream Bridge, and you can teleport two things.
Oh, there we go.
Yep, that's usually what's been happening now, which is pretty genius.
Mm-hmm.
The platonic version of KO, like the one that they envision, where like you bring a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
is like an amazingly cool book. But it's just like Thunderers are very good. The buffs you
Yeah.
can give them turn one,
Yeah.
like those once per games, you just like stack up all of the rend, and this like rend nothing unit goes to like rend 4, and just
Yeah.
blows anything off the table. And you're like, yeah, that's very good. But I don't hate it. I don't think it's super egregious because I think it's gonna have a terrible matchup against some armies no matter what.
Probably.
Yeah, which is okay.
So how do we I guess
How?
that leads into all right. So
What do we
with
want
that
to change?
potentially being problems, right?
Yeah,
Like books are hard to do, but like what could we do or what could GW do rather
yeah.
to to make a more enjoyable experience in 4th edition? What do you think?
So yeah, I guess like how to start with like some of the patterns I'm noticing too, and I'm not. Yeah, I think I'm gonna start with like the biggest one for me, or the two biggest ones, is like our terrain rules are like non-existent,
Yep.
and battle tactics I think are a completely detractive thing to the game entirely, as they are
Hmm.
written right now.
Sure.
So those are the two really big things I would like to see change. Um, and I think we've been over this all the time, like especially book specific ones, like the fact that you have to like choose them at the beginning, like makes a lot of them basically unpickable. And
Yes.
then like book specific ones, like some books have like insanely good ones, some have really bad ones.
Yep.
Which is another reason why like Soul Blight's fairly powerful. Like this is the season of Galatian Champions, right?
Yep.
And like some of the lists don't even take any Galatian Champion because you don't need them because your book tactics are so good.
Oh wow. Yep.
Yeah, like there's just four like you don't have to have a brain to get them. I'm sorry. And it's like it's an army I play, but like it's just like so egregiously bad.
Yeah.
So I don't
I
think.
think that was always a mistake.
Oh
Like
yeah, for
tying
sure.
tying points in the game to like just directly to something in the book, right?
Let me put it this way: in a match play setting where you want a fair game, yes, absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's an asymmetric win con, and that's not a fair game whatsoever.
Right.
That being said, though, narrative games and like I'm just dicking around to have fun games. I think
Hmm.
asymmetric win cons are extremely interesting.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
move these to the narrative section. Done.
Yeah. So
Honestly,
basically, the problem is these are an asymmetric win con that is only in match play where you don't want that kind of thing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not even saying get rid of them, just pivot them over. But I just think the system's flawed from the ground up, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think we've been over this a lot. I think we talked about like having a list of things that are hard to get. Maybe a couple easy to get ones, but like you pick at the end of the game which one you could score, remove it from the table. That way there's like interaction between players too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And even if you have to have book specific things, you can make it an enhancement that you have to take.
Oh, that would be way more interesting.
Yeah.
Like, make it at least a trade-off, not just like, look, my book is just straight better. Here
Yeah,
we go.
exactly. Yeah. I think that would be a really good way to do it. And I think the terrain rules I have a problem with is like they're a little bit lacking. I'm not sure if you've seen any of like the tournament terrains like setups they have, where there's basically like every table has like 6 to 8 pieces of terrain. 2 of them are impassable, 2 of them are garrison, and 2 of them are just light cover.
And then that's like basically where it stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like impassable, I think is very good because there's just like some very terrible to play with terrain pieces.
Yep.
I think garrison needs a little bit of a rework because I think it's very upsetting that you can just garrison directly into combat with shit. It hasn't come up much, but like, there's times where it has, and it's felt terrible. And it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna move into this building. I'm in combat with you. You couldn't redeploy out of it. Sucks to suck, asshole. Yeah.
No charge required.
So I just think like a little bit of a touch up to make that clearer. Question though, mysterious terrain. What do you think about that as a concept?
Is that the like the random rolls and stuff?
Yeah, like you roll the d6 and it's like, oh, this one's haunted, or what is it?
I think the problem is like it's so hard to remember that you even set them up.
Yeah, I think
because like the effects are like often small, but not always, and sometimes are really important, so you feel like a dick when you forget them, but like especially when it would hurt you or whatever.
I think the 6-up ward for some armies is wildly relevant, and the casting one, and that's it.
Yeah, like they have like 2 for bravery, right?
Yeah.
And like I think we've long said that like bravery is probably the most forgotten piece of this game.
Yeah.
Because there's so many ways to negate it ever being relevant that like, right?
Yeah, of course.
So like those numbers just basically don't matter most of the time.
Yeah. I want to come back to bravery later.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then the sacrifice one I think is good sometimes, but it's hard to remember that it's there when you really do want it, right?
Yeah. You know, too, I think is a problem with it is just it's annoying to keep track of, or is it just like they don't do enough? Because like if everything was like insanely powerful, would that be a more interesting game?
Well, that's a good question, honestly.
Yeah. Like, so one of them was like a complete line of sight blocker. If you're like, I'm touching this, you can't see me, you can't shoot me. Would that matter a lot to some armies, at least?
Yeah, like would you remember that more?
Yeah,
quite possibly.
Yeah, and what if like Deadly was like you literally can't land near it?
Yeah, or else you just start losing units immediately.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would actually make it more interesting. It would basically that one, the Deadly one, would just be like, hey, there's a hole in the board here, right?
Yeah.
Don't accidentally go step near it or that sucks.
I guess Deadly could be like impassable, right? And like just our word for impassable terrain is deadly terrain.
Yeah, you could do that.
And like that's fine. Yeah.
I feel like there's something that you could do that's interesting with these things. Like let's say like a terrain piece like so I think cover is probably the most convoluted thing imaginable.
Yeah.
Like when you get it, like I guess it's really not, but like it feels like you very rarely have it. But like let's say instead, like a terrain piece, if you're within an inch of it, you get cover. I don't know. Is that already the rule? Like I don't even know.
I think you gotta have your unit wholly within an inch. Yeah.
Unit wholly within an inch?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's say it was even easier. Let's say you just had to have 1 next to it to get +1 save. You'd remember that probably, right?
Yeah. So you're saying the limitation of the range makes it difficult?
Well, I mean, I think it does often, and I mean, I personally forget it. Maybe people don't, and maybe it's more relevant. But
interestingly enough, it depends on my army if I remember it or not.
That's fair.
Like
that's
old
fair.
OBR, when I could reroll saves for more tech guard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put these assholes on cover, and just have a 2-up rerolling.
Yeah.
Fun and interactive, huh?
Fun and interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like cover being in melee. That's just always been weird to me.
That is weird, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think so. My point with that whole statement though was like if it was, um, if you had abilities that like were more impactful to the game, like you'd remember them more for sure.
Yeah.
But like, does it make it a better game? Because then you add more potential interactions, right? That could be busted randomly.
Yeah. My gut check says like, yeah, actually, because I've been teaching people to play the game, and like I've been playing it myself, and they're like, does terrain mean anything? And we're like, other
Right.
than these mystic terrain dice that don't really mean anything, not really. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's kind of a bummer, and like that might be more exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Um,
might be.
what I would do personally is I would make them all pretty strong. Like I would make uh the casting one exactly what it is because that's really good.
Yes, that's
Six
already
up feel
good.
no
Yep.
pain is really good for some armies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I would keep that. I would make inspiring instead of +1 bravery. I would make it so that a hero on it or wholly within an inch of it can issue one command free per battle round.
Ooh, that's a good
So
one.
you get one free command point if you have your hero near it.
Yeah, that'd be super good.
Even make it like you have to be the foot hero, so there's like the reason to bring it too. I'm not sure
Sure.
about that one, but like that's just let's throw a thing out there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Make it that. I would make the sinister terrain like the impassable. Or not sinister, deadly terrain that. And like, I don't, yeah, like maybe sinister is like you can't receive commands on it.
Yeah, Sinister could be. You could even. So that would be actually that's pretty interesting. Like
Yeah.
having it be just can't receive commands. That would be yeah. So those would all be like really impactful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I feel like if deadly was just like every time you touch it, you take D3 damage, that's less annoying than every time you touch it, roll a dice on a 6 up, you take D3 damage. You
Oh,
know?
it's for sure. Yeah,
And
because
like,
like the amount of times it happens is like so few over the course of a game that you literally just forget
yeah.
that it's even there. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
wouldn't
just
even
like an
mind if,
extra die roll every time that just adds,
yeah.
adds that extra.
And like,
Yeah.
I guess my point too is like, it doesn't really matter what they are, but just like bring them to that effective of like it's gonna change your decisions that you make with the unit that's on that point based on what they
Mhm.
are, right?
Yeah. Oh
Put
yeah.
them there, and when you roll off attacker defender, and you know how it says like defender sets up the terrain and then attacker picks side.
Yep.
I would put part of setting up terrain is let's say there's 8 terrain pieces. You roll 8 dice, and then you set up where the dice go, rather than just
Oh, that'd be,
randomly for each one.
yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yep.
Then you can make like interesting things
Yeah,
on the
so it's
board.
just not like, oh, I set it up evenly, but that one, oh, we rolled it, happened to have arcane, so that's the side you're gonna pick now.
Yeah.
You know? So like that's my
Yep.
problem with it, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what the other two effects would be for like damned and sinister, but whatever of that caliber effect, it doesn't really
Well,
matter, right?
I think for Sinister, I thought the can't receive commands one was pretty good.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
all right, what was it? So can't receives the commands for sinister. Inspiring is a free command. Deadly is impassable. 6 up board. Okay, yeah. So what's damned?
That's damned. It needs to be something that's like relevant often, not because like right now it's like can be randomly good, but like you always like it's hard to remember to
It's
use,
so
right?
funny because I feel like the niche cases where it's like randomly good, like it's pretty sought after.
Yeah,
Again, OBR, your ivory host. This thing fucking rules for you.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, because I
exactly.
take the
Like,
damage and I have exploding freeze for the rest of the turn. Great.
but like then otherwise like it's just like you just ignore it basically, unless you have some like real way to use it.
What might be cool is like keep the sacrifice theme, like D3 damage to a unit,
Mm-hmm.
and then like the hero that does it gets +1 damage and +1 to wound on its favorite weapon.
That would be like that would probably be pretty. Yeah, like make it actually like always worth the trade off, or not always, but like very often worth
Yeah,
the trade off.
and like that
Yeah.
might not be quite enough, but I guess like the vampire lord on zombie dragon would happily eat a skeleton or 3 for +1 to
Yeah.
wound and damage on his lance or
Oh
claws
yeah.
or whatever.
I
Right?
mean, honestly, you could say that it's like a one-time use thing, and so like, and like we already are saying there's like arcane, which is just a buff, right?
Yeah.
Why can't this just be a buff, right? I mean, you can have the sacrifice element still, but like,
Yeah.
make it always worth doing.
It could literally be finest hour, but sacrifice a unit to do it too.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't even be opposed to being like that's a permanent buff or something. Yeah.
Or like not a whole unit, but like models, you know?
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah. Something like that, yeah. Just like if you want to keep it flavorful and cool. And like some armies might really struggle to pay that tax. And some are just like, okay. But you know,
but then like other armies like
too.
have no use for the arcane one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or the feel no pain one or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So I think making those a little bit better, and then putting that rule where the defender sets up which rolls go where.
Yeah, I think that's so much better.
Would actually like make a very interesting deployment game.
Yep, I agree.
All right, we mentioned cutting the battle tag or the bravery stuff from those terrains, and then we're like, oh, let's talk about bravery. Let's talk about bravery, huh?
Sure.
Good mechanic.
So
bad mechanic. What do you think?
So it feels like a realism mechanic.
Yeah.
Right? If that makes sense. You're trying to be realistic about like oh yeah, they would obviously break or they obviously wouldn't.
Yeah.
Based on something.
That's
and
what
then
it feels
but then
like.
it's like, well, no one wants their army to break, so and it's like just a random like extra die roll that you can just whoops, all my guys are gone. Right?
Yeah. And so
I mean, it never feels good to anybody, right?
I think what it's supposed to be
half the problem.
is like an insurance policy of like if you put everything into a unit, and like it's not gonna live by like 1 or 2 models if it like started from full. Right.
Sure.
I think that's
but
what
the problem
it's
is
supposed to be. Yeah.
There's so many ways of just like being like, well, it didn't happen.
You know,
so
people... Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I hear a lot too. People are like, I wish bravery mattered in the game. I have a feeling that if bravery mattered in the game, it would suck and people would really hate it.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I think the problem is like it is a mechanic in the game and like it's written in the rules as a mechanic that matters, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? So like you get a buff to like bravery and stuff and like it might matter sometimes, but like it doesn't very often.
Yeah.
And it's just like oh wow, I'm so glad I had that super cool ability that prevented me from running away when I could have done it some other way, or you know, maybe it prevented the loss of a couple guys this time. Great. I'm so happy about this.
I'm not sure.
Whereas like other people get like abilities that are like, look, you just get +1 save and like it saves a ton of dudes and is really powerful and influences the whole game.
Or if you look at banners too, and like some banners are like +1 bravery and some are like +1 to charge.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's
you're like one is so insurmountably better than the other.
Yeah, it's like not even worth commenting on.
Yeah. So there's part of that. I don't think a good solution either is just have monsters all over the place that shut off inspiring presence.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. You know what I think the solution is?
Cut it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just axe the mechanic. Goodbye.
I'm totally fine with it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think it really adds much. The little wheel might look weird, but that's fine. Without it.
I mean, you just make it a triangle instead, right? Easy.
Yeah.
You're fine. Yeah. It's like, I legitimately think that, and then you don't have to like think about that kind of stuff. You can plan better.
Yeah.
It's like the times where it actually matters, you're like, oh shit, I actually have to think about this and like roll these extra dice. And yeah, it's a dice game, but those aren't fun rolls. Those are, it's never like I rolled those dice and I went, yes, I did great. Right?
Yeah, you're like,
it's
okay.
I guess I didn't lose anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. And your opponent, your opponent isn't. I mean, it feels okay to have someone else lose guys to bravery.
Not all
maybe
the time.
Even good sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like sometimes you're like, man, I'm sorry, that sucks so bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't like really something you did. It's just like you did some chip damage and they got unlucky this time.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Especially
I
since it's
think.
like a completely outsized impact on some armies versus others.
Yep. Yeah, it really does. And it only has an outsized impact sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so rare that you can't even really balance around it being like, oh, okay, this army's gonna have, like 5 guys run away per game, and we're gonna balance the army around that. Because, like, it's not. It's like, sometimes you just get super unlucky in this one case, and oops, all your guys. Or, like, this super,
Yeah.
like 3 wound model ran away or something.
So
And
I
you're like,
guess
oh, well, that sucks.
counterpoint too. Like currently as it exists in the game, if you do enough damage, basically what it says is they have to save a command point to save the unit. So it's
Sure.
basically like if you do enough damage, it eats a command point. Is that fine?
I mean, but you have this whole mechanic around it that just gets. I mean, that's the most convoluted way to say save a command point you could possibly have, having an entire phase of the game with all of these rules that just comes down to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I don't
fair.
know. I mean, what ends up happening almost every time is I dealt all this damage to you. I got you down to like 1 or 2 models, and guess what? There's still 1 or 2 models, and you're like, oh my god, I just barely survived. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Because
And
that's
then
what happens 90% of the time,
yeah.
right? And then just make that the thing that happens. Like, you didn't do enough damage. They're still there.
Yeah, I guess
Deal with
the
it,
insurance
right?
policy made lot more sense when the entire game was like directed around hordes, right? And
Sure,
like you
yeah.
needed hordes to do anything.
Yep.
But like the game has moved away from that. Like that what it was in second edition.
I mean, even there, even in second edition, I feel like you very often had inspiring presence available.
The
I don't know.
problem was is like you had nothing better to spend command points on really.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like,
Whatever.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I think my opinion is it should just be gone. And if the opposing unit survives because you didn't do enough damage, then you didn't do enough damage. And then you don't have to think about this other little aspect of the game that doesn't really matter most of the time.
One more point I want to bring up is are you familiar with how they're changing it in 40K?
Not very specifically. I think I've heard it, but I
Alright,
don't
I'll go over it one more time.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you think about it because I'm mixed right now.
Okay.
And they have a stat and it's like whatever, like I think the Marines are 7 up. I forget what it is. But anyway, so every time they hit below half unit size in the turn, after they take damage, they make a morale roll on just 2 dice, and they have to beat the value they have. So on 2 dice, they have to beat a 7 up, or they fail morale. And what that means is until I think your next turn, you can't contest objectives and you can't receive commands.
Oh, that's way better.
It is way better. But
Yeah,
also, it might as well be dead in a lot of cases if it's not contesting.
Well, there are some. I've seen some models that cannot contest objectives in that game, even.
Yeah.
Or are you talking if they ported it to Age of Sigmar?
Age of Sigmar, yeah.
Well, if they can do damage still, though, like.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, they
reasonable.
can't contest objectives, but like if you had like another unit there also, that sounds like a more interesting mechanic to me, honestly.
It does.
That's actually kind of cool. Yeah.
And
Like if you really wanted to have the mechanic, like that is a better way to do it than just like randomly losing models, I think.
yeah, I'm curious to see how it pans out. And the idea
Yeah.
that they can become like unfrightened. Like they can regain composure later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then like you wouldn't need the inspiring presence command.
You can literally just axe it. I wouldn't even have it be an option
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah. No, you just if they're gonna be scared, they're gonna be scared. No like, oops, it literally never matters again mechanic.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna make it a mechanic, make it a mechanic.
Yeah.
Don't make it like a half-ass mechanic that only feels bad.
And I guess like another thing you could do too, if you had to keep it exactly the same, I would change inspiring presence to be +5 bravery. So, like you can like save your elite units, I guess, or things that like fail by like 1. or that would fail by like one. But like if you had like a horde and you lost 25 of them, it's just so fucking over for them, even if you spent the command. But even
Yeah,
then,
I
like
mean,
it's just clunky, right?
yeah, I would much prefer the 40k way. That sounds way better. I'll
Yeah.
be honest, and just not have it because like yeah, okay, your elite unit can't contest objectives, but they can still fight,
Also, I want to put it
and the
this
game
way
will go
too:
on, right?
is 40k is getting indexes for everything.
Yep.
Do that
Yeah.
honestly. Like think about like
Well.
OBR and how they had to suffer for like over 2 years in this edition without being able
Mm-hmm.
to play the edition.
Yeah.
Like no, that's unacceptable.
Yeah. No, it's real bad.
All right.
I mean, I've stated the opinion before. I mean, I'm sure this isn't going to happen, but like, I don't think the codexes are a good thing at all, really,
No, I just think you're gonna
for
have
game balance.
a terrible time convincing the money people.
Oh no.
You know what I mean?
That's not a fight that's gonna be won there.
Yeah.
For sure, it's not. Understood. Makes sense because
Yeah.
I mean, people get hyped around like new releases, new battle tomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the hype machine literally runs off of that. So like, of course, that's not gonna happen.
But I
Get
think even if you're not redoing entire War Scrolls and like entire game systems, I think it's reasonable to have an index come out for every army in the new edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember the General's
Yeah.
Handbook used to have them? Like, remember the rules for Flesh Eater Courts were in the General's Handbook until they got their book?
Yep.
Why did we stop?
I
Right?
don't know. Oh,
Oh,
the
well.
other so I'm gonna dive into a slightly different topic.
Yeah.
That I want to see is I want to see much less multiplicative abilities.
Can you give an example?
So like anything that's like double combat, right? Times
Oh,
two
yeah.
combat, right? Things like that. I'd rather see anything that like even like oh the size of the unit, increases like having more units models in a unit makes an ability better for like what it is, right?
Yeah.
I would prefer to see like a unit gets +2 attack. But that +2 attack doesn't mean they all get +2 attack for each weapon. That means they roll 2 extra dice when they're attacking. And they're treated as like the same weapon
Oh,
or
interesting.
whatever.
Okay. I like
And
that.
I think if you did bonuses more like that, you could it'd be easier to control how powerful any given ability was. And like you could control like the resource, like how much value are you getting out of any given resource that you could spend to get bonuses.
Okay, yeah.
And I think it would make the game balance a lot easier to do.
So you think like instead of all out attack, you're like you pick their weapon profile, they get +1, or like they get 4 more attacks with this profile.
Exactly. Yes, something like that. Total for the unit, right?
Okay.
But and then you're like, well, what if you had MSU? Then you could do it on both. No, have it be some kind of resource, right? Like command ability. It's like you're gonna get 4 more attacks with a weapon profile.
That's
You could set restrictions on it too, but I think it would be the whole game if you had more abilities that did something like that, as opposed to like, because I think that one of the main problems is stacking a bunch of bonuses on something that's really good at receiving a specific bonus, like +1 attack on a weapon that is way better than someone else's weapon just makes it too much, right?
Or
So
+1 attack on a guy that has 3 weapon profiles is better than one that has 1.
right, yep, that's another multiplicative thing, right? So or maybe you have like a baseline attack. I don't know. Just like everyone has the ability to swing a dagger at somebody or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can say hit someone with a club. And when you're giving out like bonus attacks, you don't give bonus attacks to like the super ridiculously powerful weapon that they have. They get 3 basic attacks in addition. So they'll do some more damage. You can easily calculate how much damage that is, right?
Oh, so it's not even
Now,
like 3 attacks on their weapon profile. It's just like
this is evolving as we're talking. I'll be honest.
yeah.
But
That's an idea.
because
that's interesting.
because like I don't know. It's the I think the problem interactions come where you can stack too many things and they all multiply together in some kind of way, right? To just be too much damage.
Yeah.
Right? Or too much save power or something like that, right?
Double combat is one of those. Double shooting, definitely.
Right.
And I think even like when you do it like the quote fair way, where like they get strike last, so you can like try to hit them back first. It's like sometimes you can't even.
Yeah, it's still, you could still say that's still like 1.5 times damage, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Honestly, you know
Like,
who this would help a lot too?
Who is that?
Foot heroes with 5 or less wounds that just have like 5 shitty attacks. If they get like an outsized benefit to swinging that like a unit of 3 would have, you know? Like,
sure.
Let's say it's like the buff is like 4 attacks at 3s, 3s, -2/2. Anybody can take it. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a Mortis Guard or your Liege Cavalos is taking it, right?
Right. It would be the same damage, and like you can control how much extra damage someone's getting, as opposed to being like, shit, I made this generic ability that does one thing, but this other guy that's way too good at receiving that. Right?
Yeah.
And it would cut down on that kind of thing a lot, I think. Like, you could even have like a few. You could have like this guy gets a basic attack, which is just like 3s, 3s, no rend 1 damage. Or he gets like a power attack, which is like, 3s, 3s, -2/2, or something like that,
I wouldn't hate, like, all-out attack staying exactly how it is, right? Like, I think I like it as it is. But I think anything that's like a double combat could go away for something like this,
Yeah.
I think multiplicative isn't necessarily bad. But I think you're right. Like locking the entire game into multiplicative means like, these units can't get buffed because like it's just completely outsized on something like them,
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, we're never gonna get rid of all multiplicative stuff, but I think the more you reduce it, the more the game will fall. Like, the more each individual army will fall more into a particular bounds that you expect, and then that makes the game more balanced. You still have unique abilities that you can use, right?
Yeah.
But like, the problems come in with when you're multiplying numbers too much, or putting someone in position, or breaking the rules too heavily that other books can't compete with it.
Honestly, that might be an amazing relic slot too. Instead of just like a relic that's like, the wielder's weapon gets like +1 to wound. And you're like, all right, I'm just going to find the best weapon in my book and give it +1 to wound.
Right.
Like, no, this relic is a weapon profile. He has that in addition to his other crap.
Right.
So, like,
and there you go.
You can put it on your, like, 110-point foot hero and get the same benefit from the relic. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Now, to be fair, like, there's some survivability elements there with something like that, right?
Exactly,
so something survivable is more likely to want to wield that weapon. But at the same time, maybe you can do other incentives for wanting to bring things like that too.
Yeah. I think what you could hear as a counterpoint to your argument too, and I'm not entirely sure I agree, but maybe, is that it's going to make list building a lot more interesting and trying to figure out what can hold these buffs efficiently and like who's the best unit to build it, because it wouldn't matter anymore. What do you think about that?
Oh, yes. No, okay. So, I was going to preface all this, and I didn't, with, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but here it is. So, because, I realize that there's, like, so it really depends on what you want in the game, right? Like, how important do you want each aspect of the game?
Yeah.
and if the answer is, I want the win rates to be as even as possible, this is how you get to more even win rates, right?
Yeah.
Like make buffs more predictable, make units sameier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing I was going to say. I'd love to see like more standard profiles for units, as opposed to like having them be wildly different, so that you can it's easier to point them.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
But if people really like win rates be damned, people want crazy abilities, like, well, then the sacrifice is the balance, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
Because it's almost impossible to balance that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the way you do it is like a rock paper scissor method,
right,
where
and
it's
then
like
and
it
then
looks
that,
good on the surface, and then you're like, oh, well, I run against this army, I can't fucking win.
yeah, I can't win, but I always beat them, and then they
Mm-hmm.
always beat the other guy that I can't beat. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then it's like, oh look, a perfectly balanced win rate, unless you look too deep, and then it's like, actually, this sucks.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like I don't know exactly where I lie in the spectrum, but like my gut check is I think that kind of buff you're talking about of just like a bonus attack profile, here it is, I staple it to a unit, is a largely unexplored space that should be explored.
Yeah.
Whether it's like in addition to what we have here, like that could be a
Mhm.
whole new avenue of like adding shit to the game.
Yeah.
And like it could just be like this relic is the Spirit of Dirthu's fucking sword, like 6 damage. Let's fucking go, right?
Yes.
Anyone can have this.
You could also make it
It could be
like,
interesting, yeah.
what if enhancements cost points, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of points they cost depended on who you gave it to. So, like, if you gave the crazy weapon to like the most survivable guy, it costs more points than if you gave it to the little guy, right?
I
Or
think
something
that's
like
gonna
that.
lead to a lot of side effects, unfortunately.
It
Of
could.
like
Yeah.
every time there's like something like that, there's like a chance it's just pointed completely wrong, or it's like, oh, it just shoots some lists out of playability, and I don't know. I think what's the idea is that like there's a give and take there, but I think the reality of something like that is like you just figure out who's the best to hold it anyway, and we're back to square one.
Oh, I mean, you certainly could be, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not
But
convinced on pointing them, but like, yeah, I see what you mean. Of like the survivable guy's just gonna win out instead of the killier guy, so it's not really changing anything there either.
right. So
Yeah.
yeah, but the thing is, so yes, you could map out who is the best one to hold it, but I think the difference would be that the win rates of putting it on that guy compared to the next guy, the win rates would change a small amount compared to like multiplicative things
Yeah.
that changes a big amount, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So that's really what I'm saying. Yes, you can probably still map out who the best guy is to hold it,
Mm-hmm.
but
But who
picking the
cares?
correct guy
Yeah.
won't have as outsized an effect as picking the wrong guy, and therefore the games will be more interesting still.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. Um. Yeah. So even the fair version of Fight Twice, where you get the strike less, you want that gone too? You think?
I mean, it's certainly better, right? But like,
Yeah.
okay, in a perfect world for me, like I'd rather see. I would much rather like paint my guys, have a book that has a couple abilities for my army, have most units be same-ish, and like, and I can learn that game easier. I have less things to think about, like, and I mean it's just a different game at that point, I suppose. But
Yeah.
but that's the kind of thing I would like to see more of. Like, make the game easier to learn for a new player. Don't make it as intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Make the profiles more similar, and you'd have a better balanced game too. But I don't think that would sell, and I don't think enough people would like that. But like that's the kind of thing that I would like to see, personally.
Let me put it this way, and I think this goes into another point that I wanted to go into. Is
Mhm.
I think the on ramp of this game is atrocious, and they really need to look into that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like teaching people how to play. And I think they're doing a great thing with Combat Patrol in 40K, where the
Oh yeah,
boxes
yeah, yeah.
are labeled
Be
Combat
like,
Patrol for those who don't know, and there's a format just called Combat Patrol, and you just bring the box, and they have different profiles to be a completely balanced game within that box. And I think you would like a game like Combat Patrol more than like AOS proper, right? So why not give both people what they?
I'm
Yeah,
sure they'll give it.
you know.
So I just gonna stop you there real quick.
Sure.
My stream is buffering. Can you still hear me, by the way?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I can just barely hear you, and your stream for me is like a little fuzzy. So I don't know if your internet's going a little funky.
Uh-oh. Alright.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to
Oh, it looks like it came
video
back.
on the YouTube link real quick. No. It looks fine here.
Yeah, it just came back. So
Okay, I'm gonna have faith.
I think I think we're okay now. It was having a little trouble there for a second, but
Okay.
now yeah, everything looks better now on your side. So
Cool.
okay, sorry about that.
But yeah, so I just think that's like a completely underutilized space. Is like the low setting, like the casual gaming space, because the game is not even remotely close to balanced in the casual setting, in
No.
a starter setting, and I think that's incredibly off-putting to a lot of people. And like, of course it is. And like, you can't just be like, "Oh, trust me, bro, the game's actually good at 2K." It's like, no, you're gonna lose a lot of people that way.
Yeah, right.
So,
Well, the other thing I think so I think if you had more simplified profiles, I think it would actually open up maybe more list building options because the problem is these lists to some extent not wholly, right? But like to some extent get solved,
yeah,
right? For a given meta. And I bet you the win rates between the good lists of various armies compared to the bad lists of various armies is a wildly different number,
I'm
right?
sure it is. Yeah,
Yeah. And that's fine that there's uh that list building matters, and I wouldn't want to say that list building doesn't matter anymore, right? But I think if you had things closer, you could still express yourself in that realm, but like not have it just be like a well, sorry, idiot, you're not either a genius at this game or you didn't look up the meta list, so therefore you're gonna lose way more than the next person,
yeah,
right?
I can see that point for sure.
And I think it would encourage like I would rather like spend more time in the game like thinking over and maybe this is just me personally, but I'd rather spend more time like thinking over the tactics of the game and like really being able to delve into like the minutia of various
You don't want to lose that list
situations.
building. Yeah,
um than like winning or losing because I did the thing that my list was built to do or I didn't, you know?
yeah,
Like I'd rather like agonize over like any given like a charge. It's like, oh, is this like based on my knowledge because I faced this situation a bunch of times. I know that like my unit of warriors on average will like destroy 60% of that unit. But like, is that good enough in this situation? And like,
yeah,
think about those kinds of aspects of the skill of the game, right? More than just, oh, I have this list that does this thing. And I know all those situations still matter, and you can still agonize over those things, but it's really hard to like learn your opponent's army and learn your own army without playing thousands of hours, right?
yeah. That's fair. It's like, how long do I
So
have? Like, I don't want to have to play as much as like Alex does to be good at this game.
yeah, I'd rather be able to be competitive without needing to like devote my entire life to figuring out all these situations. I'd rather be able to think about them on the fly and like actually be able to like think through the situations without being like, well, what does your guy do? What are those stats? You know,
Yeah, that one's
as
hard
quite as much.
because like I'm gonna say I think you made a great argument, whether you disagree or agree with your point, right? And I think there's gonna be counter arguments to your point that are completely valid, right?
Oh, sure.
And I like what you're saying. I totally do. I don't know if it's for everybody, but also
Oh
at the
no,
same
I
time,
don't think it is. Yeah, agree.
I wanted to talk about something interesting too. Is like all these things and all these books that were like in older books were just like the hit roll or the charge roll, and it became the unmodified hit and the unmodified charge.
Yep.
And like, I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool if they like cut unmodified in a lot more spots. You know, that let you do
Oh,
the crazy
see, that's
synergy.
like the totally opposite of
Yeah,
what I'm
exactly.
suggesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And like, let me put it this way. For example, the Lumineth Sentinels, right? In the
yeah.
whatever the spear guys are called, the wardens, they have like the 6-up mortal wounds. But if you cast a spell, it's on a 5-up. And then like the hero has a second shot to give it to D3 extra guys, right?
Hmm.
Like you could just like not make those things a wizard and you could just let them be on a hit roll of 6. They do the mortal wound, and then you can give them all out attack, and then the hero can just double issue all out attack or some shit. You know?
Yeah.
So like it completely streamlined the rules in a way that does exactly the same thing but way simpler, but also like let you put a list builder bug together too. You're like, oh, I
Hmm.
noticed it's really cool synergy. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And like it gives extra value to things that are like +1 to hit because I'm Night Haunt and my 6 is auto hit, and now it's all 5s on this unit, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like Skaven had like this 3 claw steps ahead, where it's like the first unit took the charge roll and then they FAQ'd it to be the first unmodified charge roll.
Hmm.
So there's like a synergy where the Rat Ogres got +3 to charge, and everybody else in the army just used their absurd roll. So if they rolled like a 9 and got a +3, everybody had a 12. And that was like an awesome delivery method for Skaven that got nerfed. But like that's going to the polar opposite of what you were saying earlier of like normalizing stat profiles.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But like I don't know which world I want to live in, to be honest. Like I see the appeal to both.
Oh yeah. No, I agree. I think for me personally, I prefer finding synergies and having broken like multiplicative stuff in single player games. And
Yeah.
I prefer my multiplayer games where I'm playing against another person to be more like in the moment decisions as opposed to me winning in deck building.
Yeah, so like Path to Exile, if you could do shit like that, which you can.
Right,
You're way into
exactly.
that, but like as
Yeah,
soon as
I'm
you break it,
totally into that. Like that's cool when you find those things, but it's not like you're just dunking on somebody else at that point, right?
that's the
It's
problem with
like,
it, right?
look, we came to this game and you already lost this game before you don't even know it. You might not know it yet, but you already lost this game because my list is just way better than yours,
Yeah.
right? And then you play like 2-3 hours and realize that that was true, and there you
You know,
go.
that's totally fair too, yeah. So it's really hard because I think every game goes through this. There's like pros and cons, where it's like
Yeah, yeah,
the more you play the game, the more complex you want it to be, because the more
yep,
play space you want it to have,
right,
and
sure.
that's fantastic,
Hmm.
right? But on the same note, like the more you go into that path, the more you're shutting off casuals to do your game too, right?
I have no problem with like there being a lot of skill, right?
Yeah,
I guess it comes down to okay. Here's like a phrase that like gets tossed around in gaming a lot, right? The depth, not complexity.
yeah,
I would rather them figure out like deep mechanics that like matter and like you have to like really think about like when they matter and like make smart decisions than complexity that you have to sift through to find the good stuff.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
In multiplayer, yeah, I see your point entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's just and 100% this is just my opinion.
sure.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it's
Yep.
wrong either. Like I'm saying there's like compelling
Yeah.
arguments, and I guess like my overall point is that like you can have the game modes in your game. Like this is the
Yep.
biggest miniatures company, the biggest wargaming company on the planet.
Yep.
You can have multiple game modes, and
I
like
think the what because I mean they do, right?
yeah,
They have the open play, they have the narrative play, whatever match play.
yeah, but just support them
Like
equally.
yeah. I think what we're almost saying is we'd rather the game modes be like a wild list building game mode and like barely any differences. Let's go head to head and see who's like the better on the tabletop
Yeah,
game mode, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't make in one you can make the game over before it starts if you're like way better at deck building, and then if you actually find like two people that are super evenly matched, right? You
That's when it's
you
an
have a
action
really
game.
interesting game, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, these are crazy interactions that are happening, right? And
Yeah.
that's fine. I think that's the game we have now, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But then I'd love the mode of like, well, most things are normalized, and get some models on the tabletop, but you're gonna have a super balanced experience, pretty much no matter what army or list you play. Maybe not
Yeah,
entirely.
I'm just saying that
There'll
could be
be
the
some
difference
elements,
between
but yeah,
combat patrol and proper.
sure. Yeah, what I'm saying is that I would prefer it not to be like, oh, here's the Weenie Huts Junior version and here's the full version, right?
Yeah, they could sell it in a way that it's not the Weenie Hut Junior version, but
I like that phrase a lot, by the way. I find it
yeah,
funny.
that's kind of what it is. Saying it's like the learning
Yeah,
tool.
like I'd rather be like I'd rather go to a if I was gonna go to a Warhammer tournament, I'd rather go to one where it's like everyone's playing this like personally.
Yeah.
I'd rather go to one where it's like everyone's playing this like really balanced format, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that it's gonna really come down to like my movement on the battlefield and like utilizing like a few small abilities that I have and like how can I really like eke the most value out of them. And like eking value being like, oh, I got like one or two extra hits out of this, and man, it feels good that like I was able to pull that off, type
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, and I see what you mean. It's like you could just lose to somebody because they had like a wombo combo that you didn't even know you had to deal with.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
and to be fair, that definitely is more of like it's definitely more friend. That would be more friendly to somebody who doesn't play necessarily as often, but plays enough to like understand the rules of the game. But at the same time, they'd still lose if you don't play enough. You're still going to lose most of the time, right?
Yeah. I'm curious what the commenters and viewers of this video have to say about this.
Yeah.
Because like I'm very torn because like I think like I said you made a very compelling argument for this. I don't know if too much is lost, but like is it valuable stuff that's lost too? You know, because like every design decision you make has a consequence,
Exactly. Yes.
right? Yeah, and like
Yep.
what do you want the consequence to be? What's the experience you want? And I think that's
Yep.
going to be different from person to person.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest. I think like as much as like two game modes would be fun there, I think it would be like it basically be two different games at that point.
Yeah.
So Warhammer's gonna pick one way that they're gonna do things, and I think they'll continue doing like roughly what they have now, which is fine.
Yeah. I just think it's more like evocative narratively that like an army can do this crazy
Yes,
thing, and like I think that's
yes,
what sells Sigmar.
I think it does. Yes,
Yeah. So.
I don't disagree with you. So like I don't think necessarily this game is going to ever do this. This is more like my
But I think
desire
there's
for the game.
valuable lessons there of like you could introduce linear scaling into the game in a very healthy way. And
Yes.
like you're saying, and like even like your idea of like they get this many bonus attacks, that could be a great like addition in like the artifact enhancement section too.
Mm-hmm.
Or if there's even like a spell where it's just like you get this weapon profile, fucking sick. I summon like the sword of the ancients or whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's a great design space to explore depending on the overall regardless of the overall direction that you're
I can
taking the
already
game.
see the arguments against that. It's like, but they only have two hands and they're already wielding two weapons. They couldn't possibly do it.
Well, they're gonna do that thing that fucking guy in One Piece does, where he wields a sword in his mouth. What do you want? Or if it's a spell, it's
Exactly.
like floating next to you.
This is a game
Yeah,
mechanic. Get over it.
yeah, it's a game mechanic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A, it's a game
Anyway.
mechanic, and B, like, especially if it's a magic weapon.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's actually the perfect way to handle it. I think.
Yeah,
Just like magic weapon
we've seen
floating
it in
next
D
to you.
and
There you go.
D a
Hit
billion
him.
times.
Yep.
Yeah, like self-animating swords. This isn't new people. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Anyway.
about command
That was a quick.
abilities a little bit.
Yes. Sounds good.
Yeah,
I got on a wicked tangent there.
we
So
did, but it was a worthwhile
here we
one, I
go. Let's do
think.
something else.
Yeah. Um, do you have any problems with like the way they've been doing command abilities in the game? Any of the core ones that you think are need to be changed? Or do you think they need to add new ones?
Um.
I can answer
Hmm.
this if you don't have an answer.
Yeah. Why don't you answer first, and then I'll
4-up
try to.
rally can fuck itself entirely. And like I
Sure.
know it's a hypocritical thing of the death player to say, but I think um
But your books are built around it, and others aren't, right?
yeah, and like just like having 4-up rally as like a random buff. And I guess you could argue that like goblins are built around 4-up rally, right?
Oh,
Um
you're going out again. Sorry, Alex.
oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll bring the mic closer, maybe.
We'll get back to it. Or up rally can go fuck itself.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. All right, looks good.
I just yeah. And at least in the death armies it's like actually to your point, Bill. A lot of them just have like you return 4 models or 3 models to the unit rather than you roll a dice for each missing one, and each 4-up I have a chance of getting an insane amount or not anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's a linearly scaling regeneration as opposed to like a randomly scaling one. But
Yeah, you could just do it. You could just do it based on wounds and just be like, you return 3 wounds worth, 4 wounds worth of models to a
yeah.
unit. Bam, there you go.
Um
Done.
yeah, I don't think I think 4-up is too much of a I don't know what to put, but like the fact that you can do it on both people's turn and then you just recoup 75% of what you got shot at. And like some armies can triple issue that now. It's like
Well, it's a multiplicative issue, right?
yeah,
The base one
yeah.
was designed as a 6-up. This
Mm-hmm.
makes it 3 times as good,
Yeah.
right?
And if you triple issue it
And
9 times as good,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Or even more,
there you
like
go.
yeah,
Yeah,
exponential.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Maybe that math is probably not like perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but the general idea is there, right?
yeah.
It's
So
still like a multiplicative issue.
I just want to say slow your roll on rally. Like
Yeah.
it should be a very rare thing to have model return. Like I don't think it should be game wide, to be honest. I don't think every army should have the chance to get it. And
It's an interesting concept.
yeah, it makes no
And
sense lore wise. I know, like, oh, like they've been like falling down, and then you're like, stand up, brother, we can do this. Like, no, the thing literally says slain models, right?
they were dead as a doornail.
Yeah, and they came
Hey
back
Alex,
up.
guess what?
Yeah,
It's magic.
magic. Sure, it's necromancy. You all belong to me. That's
Exactly.
all I'm saying. But yeah, I think they could curtail that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, I think I really like the selection of core command abilities. And I think to your point too, I really like that they don't put command abilities a lot in books anymore. Like these are just the ones that are good. These are what you can expect.
Yep.
And like OBR's thing is command abilities, so they have a lot of special ones.
Yeah, and that's their special thing.
And if you do it special, make it like an army thing, not like this random buttfuck hero has it for no reason, right?
Yes.
You know? That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah.
And like the Stormcast ones that are like it's an enhancement, you pick one of them to do once per game. I wouldn't even mind that just becoming an evergreen list of extra things they have.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. And like that could be a way for armies that don't have insane magic to compensate against armies that do have insane magic, or a different way to interact, you know, in the hero phase.
Yep.
So I'm cool with that. Heroic actions, monsters actions. I functionally like how they work, but at the same time, I think they're a little. I need a little bit of improvement. What do you think?
Um, I think I'll always go back to like I still hate when it's like, oh, you got a random chance to have it do nothing.
Yeah.
With a lot of things. Because it's either like good or it's not, and I don't know.
My honest
That
answer
issue.
is you shouldn't have to roll for heroic recovery.
Yeah, that's just weird to me.
Rolling a
It just
1 is
feels like
already
so
enough of a
bad.
punishment.
Right.
Yeah, so I would just get rid of the initial roll. The command point one is fine. I just feel like a lot of games it's like, oh, I guess I'll do the command point one because I have no other options actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they could design heroic actions in books a little bit more. Like the Beasts of Chaos ones are super cool. The Slaves of Darkness ones, right?
Hmm.
They could design into that spot like a little bit more. And
Well,
as
you know
far
what's interesting is what is fundamentally different? Like you were like the sorry, I'm getting a little echo.
oh
Um, what is like yeah, sorry, I still have and then sorry, I can't really talk. Throws me off so
I
hard.
wonder why you're getting echo now.
Yeah, I don't know. It like literally just started. Oh, and it's still there a little bit. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
hold on.
Okay.
I'm gonna get my headset actually.
Okay, sure. Yeah, sorry
Um,
about that.
that's all good. I was just wondering if we could swing it without it. Yeah, I'm just gonna talk for a little bit while I do this, but yeah, I minutes before we started the stream, I've been working on fixing up my bathtub all day today, and I was running super late, so I just figured I'd try to be lazy and not do this. But yeah, so we're gonna have to do
Well,
that.
it worked for 90% of the stream.
Yeah, I don't know what changed.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so hold on. All right, that should be fine now.
All right.
I can
Yeah,
hear you.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet. Okay.
Cool. So
So I guess the point is so you said you don't like command abilities, right? Designed onto like random units,
yes.
but you do like heroic actions designed into books.
Yeah.
So what's fundamentally different about those two things that makes one more appealing to design into a book than the other?
I just don't like when a hero is like only one guy in the whole game can do this, but
Hmm.
like you can expect an army to be able to do an ability, right?
So
Rather
if
than
so if the command abilities were designed into the army, that's
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. All right.
Yeah, and I just think because like OBR, it's not like every hero has their own command abilities, and like some do,
Right. Yeah, it's
and
the
it's a
whole
little
thing.
annoying.
Yep.
But when like some units do, like that's the one army where I think it's fine because
Sure.
that's like their
Yeah, it's like
entire
really
identity.
ingrained into them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I would rather just move everything to like the allegiance ability side of things. So it's just like this is what we can expect the army to be able to do.
Yes, I like that idea a lot better, actually.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like every time you come across like fire slayers, you know that they have the heroic action that they can empower their runes. And like it's
Right.
also so tied into their rune system, which is just their allegiance ability too, right?
Right.
But like if I had like you could play like 100 games against Nighthaunt, and then you go to like a tournament setting, and then you find somebody else with Nighthaunt, and they're like, "Oh, this character has a different heroic action," and you're like, "Oh, cool, didn't expect that." And like the
Right.
only exception to that in my mind would be god models or like faction leaders.
Sure. Yeah,
But
you'd
even
want them
then,
to have special abilities.
yeah. And
I
I
think
guess
that is another good point though. Like I would prefer it. I think a part of the trouble in learning the game is the sheer amount of like abilities that are on models as well. Like you could play against an army and like eventually learn what their things do, but like as soon as you see a new model, it's like, well, that this guy could have completely different rules than the last guy, right?
yeah. So yeah, I see your point there too. And like I don't know. I just think what makes it especially fine too in the heroic action scene is that like the core ones are like I get a command point or I don't or I heal or I get that like one combat buff once per game
Mhm.
or the dispel like a lot of them are very niche except for the command point one where
So it
like
sounds like almost like the power level, like you still need to have the right power level, but it's like a low enough power level that it's fine to design different ones
yeah,
essentially
exactly.
without the real worry of it like completely blowing up the game,
Yeah.
but like adding something interesting.
Also in addition to having it be its own hero thing or the heroic action in the command phase as an allegiance thing rather than just like her command abilities on like a little hero themselves. It's like it's not multiplicative that way. It's like
Yep.
you pick one, your army does it once. I guess
Yep.
command abilities would work the exact same way too, but so that's a bad example. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems right to me
Sure.
that armies get it and not specific heroes.
hmm
And I
No,
don't know how to
I mean,
explain
I
it more
don't
than
disagree
that.
with you. I
Yeah.
like that way better. Yeah.
But yeah, you're asking why I think that, and I realize I don't have a great answer for that.
That's fair.
Other than like, I think it's cool. Actually, I think that's a fine answer. It's just like, I think it's great to know what an army can do rather than having to know what each individual model does.
Oh, I think that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
I think
Yeah.
that was my point too that I was struggling to get out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, like I would prefer to like be able to learn the army and then like that's even like a thing you could do like I would prefer like let's go back to the thing I was talking about a little bit of like if you could look at a table, right? And be like, I understand roughly what that unit's going to do based on the shape and size of it, right?
Yeah.
And and then it's like, okay, and now I'll admit that I have to learn what their army does. But then as soon as I know their army's rules, I can look at their units they have on the table and extrapolate how that would be used, right? Yeah. Whereas if everybody has like currently all different rules that like maybe you've never seen or heard of before, it's like adding to that learning process like extensively.
Yeah, and I guess
right.
Another dark side of that too is like a great example of this is Beast of Chaos. And the movement tech that they can do is insanely different whether they bring a Bulgor to their army or not, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because the charge in the combat phase.
Yeah, yes,
in either
exactly.
combat phase after running and charging.
Yep.
Like, as far as competitively goes, that ability is completely army defining.
Sure.
And I'd rather it just be an allegiance ability.
Right.
Rather than forcing
that's
you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly the problem, right?
Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it as an example. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So we're on the same page there.
Oh yeah.
Great. Yeah, heroic actions, battle tactics, book specific ones, get out of here.
Yep.
Trying to think. Monstrous actions. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I kind of like books having their own. Like, maybe it's like they have monstrous actions or they have heroic actions.
Sure.
Yeah, like, because the Gargants should get the monstrous actions because they're monsters. Ogres should too. Soulblight currently has a little bit of both.
Yep.
I think that's okay too. But yeah, just be sparing, but they're cool.
Yeah, and I think one thing that they do right now that I think we'd both say right now that we disagree with is that like normally it's a specific model that can do one of those monstrous actions.
Yeah.
And I'd prefer if any of the monsters could do any of the monstrous actions that they have.
Oh, I agree with that.
Like, yeah. I can learn that. Yeah.
Because if it's like, oh, only the Stonehorn can do this, you're like, okay, well, this one's really good. I need a Stonehorn in every army. Even though it's technically an allegiance ability.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with both of them being able to do it, yeah.
Yep.
So, I'm right there with you. And, let's see, what else? I don't know if I love enhancements being tied to, sub-factions either. Like, you know how, like, Slaanesh and Soulblight, like, their relics, artifacts, and in Slaanesh's case, their spells are tied to their allegiance?
Yep.
So it's like, I think that goes right into what you're saying, too. It's like, playing against Pretenders is different than playing against Godseekers entirely.
Yeah, it's basically like playing against two different armies at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, I mean, at that point, it's just a different army to learn, which...
Yeah.
But it can be confusing being like, wait, haven't I played against this army before? And wait, they do something totally different type of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like with like really true, it seems like with Seraphon, right?
Yeah. But like, it's kind of cool at the same time, so like...
It is, yeah.
Which one wins?
But I mean, they basically just made like two different armies. I'd say almost lean into it harder than instead of like if that's what you want to do, if you're trying to make two armies out of one, like, sure, make them two armies.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. All right, let's see. Spells in this game. We've talked about like a lot how like if you're just a better spellcaster, you can just shut your opponent entirely out of a certain phase.
Mm-hmm.
40k is doing spells completely different. I don't know if you saw that too.
I did not.
They're just like if it's a shoot like a spell that does damage, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
a ranged attack now.
Oh,
Like that's it.
okay.
And then like
Yep.
there are auras that go off on a 2-up now in a lot of cases.
Okay, so they really like integrated the whole psychic phase into just the rest of the game. It sounds like.
Yeah, there's no psychic phase.
Wow.
It's just like if you have a ranged attack, you're shooting. And like I don't hate that honestly.
Yeah.
And
So
like
what are some like spells that AOS has that like don't work at all with that kind of thing? Is there anything?
so like for example, Von Hell's Dance Macabre is like the you pick a unit if it's in combat, it gets to fight.
Yep.
Um, in this it would just be like in that phase on a 2-up that unit gets to fight. Or it's just like you pick an enemy unit in the shooting phase, and on a 2-up, waste away happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So basically, it's removing the counterplay of like the denies because
as far as I
you
can
can
tell,
just
yeah,
you can just over deny somebody and then like they lose out on an entire part of the game,
yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
So there's like a dark side to that too, but I think it's also just like
Sure.
way faster,
Oh yeah, for sure it
which
is.
is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yep.
And I guess like yeah, if somebody's just a better caster than you, they manifest it by doing better things with their psychic abilities or their magic abilities too, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily like, oh, I'm showing
That
I'm
you
a better wizard than you by like just stopping you.
right. Yeah. It's like it like you can then also factor that into like the power level of an army better because like yes you will have this you know
Yeah,
60% of the time or something, right?
yeah,
And it's not going to be like dependent on who they're facing that oops they can actually deny me completely
yeah.
and therefore I lose out on this ability entirely that I didn't. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then it's like and then like because like you also if you were like better at denying than other armies like and you paid points for that essentially
Yeah,
right under the hood
yeah,
like and that's just useless some places it gets rid of that as well.
yeah. And like maybe you could just have like a play space too of like, oh, this guy's has a counter spell, and he gives a unit like a 2-up save versus like or spells. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like yeah, like instead of having it be like generic, you could be like, yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you could dive into that. I think that system could be better. I'm excited to see it, but I don't think Magic necessarily needs to change
Hmm.
in this game. But like, I think it could be better.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate seeing that.
Actually,
That
endless
sounds
spells might
interesting.
be weird.
Yeah. Well, all right. You could still honestly in that same system, you're just getting rid of the denies essentially. You could
Yeah,
just get rid of the denies and just like it happens if you roll high enough.
yeah,
That still seems fine.
yeah. Just cut deny from the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like tone down some of the casting some of the armies can do.
Yeah. And just make
Yeah,
them into more like range attacks or something essentially.
yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like just the damage spells being a ranged attack too.
Yeah. It just simplifies things, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like can you imagine if Arcane Bolt was just like just a ranged attack?
Yeah,
Like how many fewer iterations they'd have to go through?
I wouldn't even mind if
That
magic was like a hit roll when it hits does mortal wounds.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, right? And like that differentiates like of course it would go through armor, it's spells.
Yeah,
Like that's
duh.
traditionally what they do, yeah. Also, I think Arcane Bolt should just be D3 mortal wounds no matter what.
Sure.
Instead of just like one mortal wound, unless you're in combat, then it's D3. Like I don't think the pocket rocket thing is like actually fun gameplay.
Yeah.
I think you could just be like 12 inches, boom, D3, done. Move on with our lives.
I think I don't know. I think it should just be it's a shooting attack, hits cause mortal wounds, three
Two
attacks,
up, D3 mortal wounds.
hits
Yeah,
on a 3-up or
done.
something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 up, 3 up, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. Just
cool. I'm
there you
into
go,
it. Yeah.
easy. And then you don't have to worry because the problem is right that it's like it's the timing of everything where you have
Yeah.
to use magic first, but you want to be able to move. So like the pocket rocket thing is just like a band-aid for that
Yeah.
of letting you move and then shoot, right?
Yeah.
So just make it a shot. Just make it a shooting attack.
Most
Easy.
damage spells could be that. Yeah.
I like
You can
that.
incorporate
Yeah.
damage spells.
Yeah.
And like the Lumina thing I was talking about could just be their bows and like their magic bows. Duh.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Easy.
So like I think you could simplify it and make it just a flat better system.
Yep.
And like Curse of Years could just be like a nuke of a shooting attack, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like here, 10 attacks, 3 minus 2/2. Boom boom boom. Or like hits on a 3-up and does like 3d3 mortal wounds, call it a day. If we're going through our old system that we're just like, oh, they should do mortal wounds because they're magic. Yeah. Cool.
Hits on 3s, mortal wounds. Like 2 mortal wounds per hit or something. I don't know. You can do something silly. That doesn't actually make sense, but that's okay.
I do want to steal this one point from Warhammer Weekly because I think it's something that super easily lost, and I think it's great. Is he talked about something like when the rule books come out, or not the core rules right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They should have a synopsis in there for each army, what they're good at, what they're bad at. So when they go through and design books, they have like a point of reference. Because like his complaint is like he thinks that like they come up with fun ideas, and they just implement it in the most recent book rather than the book that it truly belongs to.
Oh,
so
that's
like goblins having special heroic actions makes no fucking sense.
Yes.
Next to like these order armies, like you know what I mean? So like
oh yeah.
I go back to the design document basically and be like, oh, this is what goblins should be able to do. This is like what Khorne should be able to do. Let's make sure that we're aligned with that.
Yep.
I think that's great, and I think you do that by making an index, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. I just wanted to pull that one out.
Yep.
Would you change core enhancements how they are? Would you get rid of them? Would you add more?
Core enhancements. Well, I think we've come up with some ideas of like what some could be.
Yeah.
I think what the problem is always going to be with core enhancements is they're either too good to overshadow everything or they're not good enough, and then they don't see play.
Like the Arcane Tome was too good, yeah.
Right. Now, that being said, like everyone's, it's most of the time things are going to turn to meta. So like, some things are going to see play, some things aren't.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. It's there's a thing I'm trying to get across, and it just left my brain, and it'll come back. I just got to give it a second. I have no idea what I'm saying anymore. Oh god, this is so embarrassing.
All right, I'll take over for a second. So like,
yeah.
I don't know if Arcane Tome was too good, or just like the enhancements in the army books are wildly underdesigned. Is my honest answer. And like what they were capable of doing, but like at the same time, like there's stuff that you read that you thought was insane, and it turns out it wasn't. Like a lot of the Slaves to Darkness artifacts, like people are just taking Arcane Tome over them instead.
Yep.
Even like we thought it was like, oh, they can't like issue commands within range. It's like okay, I thought that would have been the winner. So maybe it was too good. Yeah. So like my initial thought would have been like to make a wizard one, make a priest one. So like we don't have a priest one currently, but it would be kind of cool if we had one.
Yeah.
And a lot of the core ones are just like pretty ass, honestly.
Yeah.
So like I wouldn't mind if there's just like a weapon of just like this thing kicks ass in the core enhancements. You know, like that could be a place where you could put your like, oh, this guy gets 4 extra attacks at 3s minus 2 too.
Right.
It could be a reasonable core enhancement.
I think the problem is, and I mean, the original one. What was the thing called?
The Amulet of Destiny.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's always going to be the problem with like it's either too good or like sees no play, and is just ass, right? With the basic ones, but they do at least one problem they do solve is if there is one that's like just good, right?
Yeah.
Um, like a book that doesn't have any good ones of its own doesn't just get like totally left in the dust, right?
Yep.
Um, but then you could say that's a failure of the book design itself, right? And that's more of a band-aid than really a solution. It's
Yeah.
like, well, why don't you like take another stab at those really bad ones, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
It's very hard to see like
yeah,
what every army should fundamentally have.
right.
And yeah.
It almost feels like with the core enhancements, there should be like what if you could take like one core enhancement and one book enhancement or something like that?
Yeah, one of each.
Yeah, some way like so that it's not like one thing always gets left in the dust.
My honest answer is I think we just have to completely relook at battalions. And I think one of the reasons is to like pick up on this. I think like enhancements should be easier to get. Do you know how like in 40K like how easy it is to get like 3 command traits and 3 artifacts for your army?
I did not realize that was
Yeah.
so that's interesting.
And it's just like very fun.
So is the real answer just like there's no reason to like that you necessarily have to revisit the core stuff other than to change some of the abilities, but you could just say each person gets 2 artifacts by default. Like where's the number that's like it's fun if I get 3 artifacts. It's fun if I get 3 command traits, right?
Yeah.
They did that with command points, right? They were just like 1, what about 2 and 3?
Yeah. And like I think 2 is a fine baseline even. But like I think battalion like let's go into battalions actually.
Sure.
Because I think there's 6 core ones, right? Can you tell me what they do?
Mostly, I think, actually.
All right, let's hear it.
There's the one shot or the one drop deployment.
Yep.
There's the one that gives you uh just magnificence, which is just the 3 guys, right?
Yep.
There's the one that gives you magnificence and something else.
Begins with an S.
That's the one. Begins with an S.
Strategist.
What, the other thing it gives you? Or the name of it?
The name of the other thing it gives you.
Oh.
Is strategist. Gives you magnificence and strategist.
That's just an extra command point, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then you get you've got the monster one that gives you a free all-out attack or all-out defense. You got like the swift one that gives you an extra all-out or not all-out, the run in I think it's run in charge, right?
That you get to do an at the double or the charge, yep.
Yeah, those guys. And then okay, so how many was that? That was 5?
Yeah.
6? No, that was all 6, right?
So the 3, the monster, the run, that was 5. The last one's artillery.
Oh, there's an artillery one? Wait,
yep.
The one drop, the 2 magnificence ones.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that was only 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's an artillery one.
So
you did great. My point, what I was going to try to make, is that people remember Command Entourage and one drop, and that's it. Like, that's all people really build for, at least.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No. I don't disagree with you at all.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were going to be like, oh, I honestly don't remember the other 2. Because I think the majority of the world doesn't remember the other, or 4, rather. You know?
I think I remember them simply because when I was first looking at these abilities, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. Like, there's actually so many options here. And then I looked at what they gave, and I'm like, wait, no.
Very disappointed. Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
And then I always went back and I'm like, no, hang on, I must have read this wrong. And then I was like, no, I still didn't. It still sucks.
It's funny, when I was teaching Ray how to play, we had like a very big, well, not debate, but like he was just like, I can't believe these don't let you like issue these in addition. Like, if you take the Vanguard one, you should be able to issue the charge one twice. And I'm like, that's not how it works. And he's like, okay, then there's absolutely no point into these. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
there isn't.
Correct.
So yeah, like I think you just one drop. I think it's way too easy to fit your entire army into one drop.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to fix that, and I think you need to give meaningful benefits, and like maybe letting you do those in addition, or like letting you do those twice. Like if you have a Vanguard, you can issue the second time you issue the double to a unit in this, it's free, and you get to issue it twice.
Yeah, like that
Yeah,
would be way
like that
better.
might
Yeah.
that might be too good, but like that'd be meaningful. I think there should be a battalion that gives you reinforcement points because some armies wildly struggle with the amount of reinforcement they're allowed to have.
Yeah.
And they're like ground up designed to be horde books. I think Nighthaunt does. I think Skaven does is a really great example.
Yep.
Of like watching Skaven have to be MSU is very upsetting.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but Daughters of Cain is the only book that can cheat.
They can cheat everything, it feels like.
Yeah, which is so funny.
Yeah.
But like I can't believe that like that's the one place they decided to do extra reinforcement points. It's like really
why there?
Army? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a sidetrack, but like still, I think my point stands. Like I think that'd be an excellent, meaningful battalion.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think one thing I would like to acknowledge is that, in my opinion, this system is way better than the old one.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So they made steps in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, keep going.
Whether it's might not be perfect yet, but like way better than what it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And like I don't honestly hate like remember the very first General's Handbook? We had the one that like shut off monsters' actions.
Yes.
I don't hate that. I don't hate the one that's like the 3 monsters that's like they move D6 at the beginning of the game. Make it 6, honestly. That could be a really great core one. Because like some armies are really good at like running all monsters.
Sure.
That's a great reward to make them not 1-drop.
Yep.
It's like I can like extra move after. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there needs to be better incentives. Because I don't think 1-drop is necessarily a problem. But the problem is it's just like there's really nothing to go for.
Right.
Except for like I feel like what they've been trying to do is explore is what people need to not go for 1-drop. And Bounty Hunters was a very clear example of
that was actually a point I was gonna make, was that like I don't even hate that they tried Bounty Hunters, it just turned out to be too much.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm glad they tried it. Found out, okay, we pushed the bounds a little too far. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe they should have realized it a little sooner and done something about it.
Yeah.
But you know.
I can't believe they had the gall to call that one the infantry season still. It's like this is
it's like you literally killed the infantry season by putting that in there.
Unless you mean like how it's like in like Elmer Fudd cartoons, like it's duck season, rabbit season. Like that's the thing we're hunting to death. Yeah.
Yep. It's open season for them.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, we're gonna go until they're extinct. Yeah.
But the Galatian vets are going to be so important to have around for all of these reasons, except they die.
Yeah.
Almost instantly.
So like I don't know and I'm gonna be honest too. I don't hate the bounty hunter rule on individual models, right? I think the problem is that it's put on things that were already like insane.
Yeah.
And then they just got like absurdly better.
It was another multiplicative problem.
Yeah. But I think if you had like a dumpy unit that had bounty hunters, alright, we have a unit with a role now.
Yep.
So like I think I don't even hate that as like a rule. I just hate it as a rule that you can give everybody.
Yes.
So like
right.
You gotta be really careful with what you give units in these battalions.
Yep.
And like I feel like it's better off as like army things. And I feel go ahead.
Like those are the perfect kind of things to give like something that is like more like you can attack with this like 2 times, right? Or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, those kinds of abilities that don't multiply as hard to what they're put on, right?
Yeah.
You can really control like the value you're gonna receive over the course of a game.
Yeah.
Anything that can even remotely multiply is just gonna cause problems.
Yeah. And I guess in 40k 9th edition, they kind of did some scaling like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I just remembered this one because there's a Necron ability that's like when this unit shoots, each 6 is a mortal wound, and then in parentheses to a maximum of 3 mortal wounds.
Oh yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, putting caps on things kind of sucks to some extent,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like that's honestly not a bad way of balancing those abilities. It's like
Yeah.
you could play it up to a certain point, but then after that point, you're not getting additional value.
Mm-hmm. And one more battalion I think would be really cool is like 3 wizards, and the wizards in this battalion get Lore Master.
That would be very powerful.
Yeah.
But very good.
But I think that'd be a great incentive to not be 1-drop.
That's true.
But like
That's
also
true.
not like a hugely outscaled bonus too.
So here's another question: why does 1-drop still have to exist?
Because I think what happens if you don't have 1-drop, it just becomes who picks or who rolls better gets to pick who goes first and who doesn't, and it's not like a skill expression anymore.
Well, is there a way we could change that, piece of the game to be more like that?
Yeah.
Like, is there any reason like is that just a band-aid? Can we fix the actual problem?
No, because I don't think it's a problem. Is my honest answer. Like
What,
I think
having the 1-drop?
yeah, like I really don't, because like I think the problem is just like there's nothing else to pick.
Okay, that's interesting.
And like because like I honestly, even in the world where there's like not much else to pick, I still prefer not being 1-drop because I rather counter deploy.
Oh, sure.
Being comfortable with my list to go first or second either turn. But if it's a list that desperately wants to go first or desperately wants to go second, like having the building consequence to make that happen is still engaging. But you just have to like be able to sacrifice something, which is some of these battalion abilities, right?
Right.
And like an army that wants more
just not good
reinforcement
enough.
points doesn't want to go first either. Or doesn't even care about going first or second, is I guess my point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's a very healthy thing. I just don't think there's any counterbalance to it.
That's actually that was fantastically said, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That sure, it's fine for the people who want it, but it shouldn't be the only option.
Yes.
And it feels like the only option right now.
Yeah.
So give other better like allow people to do something that they lack to some extent.
Yeah, it's like in Magic, if you're in a standard format and the only removal is Doomblade, period.
Yeah.
Doomblade's not a problematic card whatsoever.
No.
The problem,
but it'll be everywhere if it's the only one.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's nothing problematic about 1-drop.
Yep.
And I think like giving up something to like be able to determine priority flow is actually like a very compelling thing in the game.
Yeah.
It's just there's nothing else. That's my problem.
Yeah, so you just do it.
Yeah.
Because there is something you gain from having that, but you're not giving anything up to get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like I think Lore Master or like extra command points, or not command points, extra reinforcement points. Or maybe you only have 1 relic, and like maybe Magnificence if you get 3.
Yeah.
Total. Yeah, you know? And it's just like, I don't know. Do you guys want to be rich and have a lot of artifacts? Do you guys want to be tactically advanced and determine turn priority? Maybe a little bit of counter deploy kind of. Yeah, like
I think the big thing you'd have to do is you'd have to make sure you balance around assuming a player is going to take the one that's best for them in a book, right? You can't just like be like, oh, those exist, and then I will, I'll build my test lists around like arbitrary ones of these. You have to assume that the player is going to play with the one that is best.
You have to know that the Nighthawk, the Skaven, the whatever Horde army player is going to play with the reinforcement point one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you have to be kind of okay with that being a thing. But if they find a use for a different one, isn't that cool? Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally valid. Unless it's super uncool, but they actually like hired a guy to balance the game, and he's doing a good job of it. So it's fine. Try shit, and if it doesn't work, fix it.
Yeah.
That's what you have Battle Scroll for.
Yep.
Yeah. No, like I'm being serious. Like I think
Oh yeah.
the battalion system is so fucking cool. It's just underutilized.
Yep.
Alright, we have about 15 minutes left. Let's try to lightning round some stuff, I think.
Try to what?
Lightning round.
Oh, okay.
So, one thing. I hate how seasons are designed around specific models. Stop it.
Oh yeah.
Just
no kidding, right?
Make new battle tactics that are just like generically good for everybody. You're inflating your freaking stats when it's like, oh, these armies are in a bad spot. Let's change points. It's like, no, they're in a bad spot because the season relies on you having monsters to score points, and they don't have monsters in their army.
Yeah.
Cut it out. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Totally
it's bad.
Yep.
Let's see. You know, might be a better idea because I think that was the end of all the things I wanted to say I'd want to change.
Lightning round over.
Lightning round over. That was a real fast one. Well, you want to talk about stuff that we think was good?
Sure.
And we want to keep going forward?
I mean, I guess I'll start. I guess I already said it, but like the core battalions.
Yeah.
Keep going with that. Make it better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that system is great.
Yep.
I like the heroic actions and monsters action thing a lot.
Yep.
I'm gonna say it. Double turn's a good thing. It's a tactically sound thing.
That is a hot take.
I don't think so.
That's fair.
Yeah.
A hot take doesn't necessarily mean bad take, I don't think.
Yeah.
Unless I'm behind on my
I just think the people who know the game very well know that it's like it's the most telegraphed mechanic in the world, right? You know it could happen.
Yeah.
You can play around it so hard.
You can.
And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's great. Because I think I need to see a lot of people who don't understand it saying it needs to go. It's only random, and that is so far from the truth.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's the most interesting thing about our game.
I can agree with you.
Yeah, I think the book's design, like, whether they're too powerful or not, most of them have been, like, very evocative of their army. They feel right. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The internal balance isn't perfect on all of them, but, like, it's a lot closer than what it was. Like, how many armies in 2nd edition were like, here's the best unit, I spam it, go. Versus now.
Yeah, right.
Yep. There's some armies that are clear counterexamples to that, but it wasn't like every army. It wasn't like, what's the best thing to take as a horde? I take, like, as many maximum reinforced bricks of these as I can.
Here, I'd like to actually go back to lightning round of things that I'd like to see changed.
That's so funny. I thought of one too.
Based on what you just said,
yeah,
I'd like to see more reasons to not spam units.
Oh, the mixed arms incentive.
Yes.
I don't know what it would be. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And our buddy Tyler Emerson would agree with us too.
Yeah.
And he's been talking about like the combined arms lists are the most fun. And like there's not enough incentive to do that. And yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I can see why Games Workshop might have an incentive to not do it. But but then again, like, they probably make a minimum amount of money from their competitive scene compared to, like, like just the casual player getting into the game.
Yes.
So if a casual player has more fun with the mixed arms list, then
enough.
Right? Like, and they don't feel the need to completely spam things, like, that sounds good.
You know, we could kill two birds here and make the rules in Battle Regiment to be one drop, like a little more narrow. and make it so that the guys in there have to be different units.
Yeah, absolutely. You
Yeah, there
could.
you go.
Yep.
I don't know if that's exactly correct, but like you could explore that space, like battalion rewards for mixed arms.
Yep.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
I think one problematic thing is I don't know what causes it exactly. Like I can't really put my finger on it right now just thinking about it. But like there's something about spamming units that like everything compounds into like one thing that's just better.
It hurts. Right? Yeah.
Somehow like if there was like an incentive to like run one of something and it had a little more power, but if like naturally having more of the same thing with specific bonuses is better. If there was a way to like tail that off or something, like you know how here you go in second edition, you know how like if you had big units, it cost you less points.
Yes.
And so it lets you get more models on the board, and it was very often the correct thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost rather see the opposite be true, where the more of a unit you ran, the more points it costs.
Yeah.
Right?
You need an app that's like good to do that for you because hand building lists would be so fucking annoying, but that's fine.
Yeah. Yes. Agree.
I'm fine with that, but yeah, like something in that space, like cook it into the core rules. Another way you could do that too is be the change you want to see. And if you're a TO, put rewards in your tournament pack for Highlander lists.
Ooh, there you go.
Or the Highlander is what it basically is, Bill, is you have to have 9 different war scrolls in your army, and you can't repeat war scrolls. And it's called Highlander because assume, there can only be one.
I did make a quick assumption on what that was, but good for the viewers that might not know.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's cool.
It's a joke. There can only be one, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, I would do that as a tournament organizer. That's what you can do in the local level. But I would like to see in-game incentives for combined arms.
Yep.
Too. Another thing, 2 more things I want to mention, is weapon ranges and coherency. Coherency would be quicker. Make it 10. I don't see a problem with like a line of 10 guys, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I hate how you can get all of your horses in combat, but only if you do like the dumbass like paw formation with them.
Yeah.
It's like it's proved that you can do it. And if you give the game to a new person, how are they going to put their horses? I assure you in a line.
Yes.
Right? Because that's what cavalry does. They're not going to Tokyo drift their motherfuckers into them. You know? Like in this sideways formation. Yeah, just make it work. Like cavalry could even ignore it. Like, yeah, make
it so you can attack with your weapons. Like, allow someone to force someone to bunch up as much as you want with random things, but just let people attack with their weapons if they're in combat.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing.
And that's why I said 10, because if it's 10, cavalry can ignore this, except for like the mega reinforced units that you don't actually see in the game.
Right.
Like you're not running a unit of 15 horses. And if you are, maybe you should have to adhere to coherency. But I don't see a problem with like a line of chaos knights, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even care if it's like coherency is just base to base rather than within an inch.
You know, I'll be honest, I would prefer to see coherency be something that basically keeps your units in a blob, right?
Yeah.
Like, one-page rules actually does something interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily the right way, but, like, I like it in concept, maybe not execution, of, like, everything has to be within, like, 6 inch diameter of each other, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that either.
I think that can use some finessing, but, like, do something to keep them in a blob, but then just let them all attack if you're in combat. Like, I think you can do away with the weapon ranges. Just let everybody attack. There's no reason to not.
So
you can balance around it, right?
Yeah. The thing I was going to say about what I would change with weapon ranges is I would delete the inch off of it entirely. Mm-hmm. And you'd have weapon range 1, 2, and 3. And that means you can fight in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd rank.
Sure. Yeah, you could do something like
that. That's it. Yeah. So like Namarti Thralls, they can fight in 2 ranks. And that way you don't have to be like, oh, this unit has a secret buff because its base size is so small that it's not an inch.
Oh, I freaking hate it.
Yeah. Like, that's one of those rules that, like, is completely lost on somebody brand new to the game.
Yep.
And it's just like a knowledge check, right? Like there's
Oh yeah.
no skill involved with knowing that, right?
Right.
It's just like, yeah, I don't know.
And,
Yeah,
and when you figure that out, you're just kind of annoyed instead of like, ooh, I figured out a cool thing.
yeah,
It's just like, why is that so important? I hate it.
yeah. It's just, yeah, it's like I hate the fact that like if I get a model, like if I get a model upgrade and it goes from like a 28 to a 32, it just got debuffed
Yeah, it's just
in
like,
a way
oops,
that
nerf.
points aren't going to account for, right?
Right, exactly.
So just make it if it has a instead of a 1/8 range, it has a 1 rank range. A 2-inch range is a 2 rank range. And that way it doesn't matter how big the base is.
Yep. Now, I think that can get awkward as well. A
Yeah.
little finessing probably required, but like the concept's good.
That's one of those things where it's like I don't know how many sweeping changes you're allowed to do per edition as a developer,
Mhm.
but I think that's one that like I think it's such a safe shoe in that it would just
Yeah.
increase the quality of the game. We saw like how well received Bonds of Battle was
Oh yeah,
for
it
this
seriously was.
game, and this is just
Like
that baked into the core with
to the
minimal
point
work.
that everyone was expecting it to be like just a core
Core,
rule,
yeah,
and then it wasn't.
and I'm sure something like that's going to exist in fourth. But
It's
I
got it
just,
right.
yeah, I just think you could do it like the weapon range profile is totally fine. The problem with that is like you have to be completely touching now. Where like if you had a 2-inch weapon or a 3-inch weapon, like if some like you could do some like cool tricks with that. That did lead
Hmm.
to like some combat nuance that was interesting. But I
Hmm.
think that's an acceptable casualty.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, is my honest answer.
I think it's okay to remove some cool, like seemingly cool interactions for the health of the overall game.
Let me put it this way: it was cool because you circumvented a rule that sucked,
Yeah, there
right?
you go.
Not that like
Right,
you found a fun interaction that like changed the
yeah,
way you played the game.
right.
It's just like you found a way to get around a bad rule.
You found a way to get around the annoying rule, and you're like, "Woo! I did
Yeah,
it!
exactly,
I
right?
don't have to think about it!
Yeah.
Yay!"
I don't know. So that's my yeah, simple change that I would do. And like maybe I don't think that'd even like cause War Scroll rewrites either. Because I think you could just largely take what they have.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's just like, I think they're probably balanced, not even taking that into account. If I'm
Yeah.
being honest, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially base size part of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I bet you that factors in very little to the pointing
Yeah.
scheme,
Because
but that actually has like an impact.
yeah.
So,
But I guess the consequence of that unintended is that bigger base sizes will become more powerful because they can take up more space. But doesn't that seem right?
to some extent, yeah,
Yeah, like shouldn't the guy who's like on a 50 millimeter RAR like be inherently stronger than the guy who's on a 25 millimeter?
sure.
That seems right to me.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Yeah,
He's big. The
and
bigotry's
then
insane.
like the normal thing to do, right, is increase base sizes, not decrease base sizes.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna do a remodel or something. So like,
Yeah, nothing has
and
ever
then someone
gotten
gets a buff
smaller.
instead of a nerf, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. 927. So, that's going to be it for tonight.
Yeah.
Um yeah, in the comment section, I'm very curious like what people agree with, what people disagree with because I feel like a couple times in that show, I think we could have like a few people screaming at our screen about how
Oh
much of
yeah.
an idiot we are for this certain play. And I don't
Yep.
care. Like I just want to see what people think. I think it's really cool. I
Oh
think the
yeah.
point of
I'm fine with
simplifying
that.
the game that you had would be a point
Hmm.
of contention, and I think
Oh yeah.
the death of
Fully
battle
expect that.
tactic system could be a point of contention.
Hmm.
Even though the battle tactic thing one is objectively true, whether you see it or
Yes.
not. Yeah, there's no good reason. But anyway, I guess we'll be back when we're back. I don't know when that will be.
Yep.
Um,
If we get a new book, we'll definitely be back.
Yeah, new book.
We might be back next week anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you interested in doing 40K stuff at all? I'm not sure I am, to be honest.
Like reviewing 40K stuff?
Yeah.
I don't think I just don't know enough to do it.
Yeah, it's just it's like, a lot. Like we complained about the AOS ones like being taxing. Like all of these are so much bigger. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be painting 40K models. I don't know if you saw my Trigon.
Ooh, look at that.
I'm super excited for the Tyranid stuff. Yeah. It's so cool.
That's awesome.
But like that's gonna be the game that I just fuck around with. Like where AOS is the one I'm gonna try, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, whatever.
I'll eventually get in those models. Tell your friends over at Mini Wargaming to get me that stuff faster, would you?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Rabbit Star.
Yeah, I don't know where that's at. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know either.
I kind of want to go back to Mini Wargaming one of these days.
Yeah.
I think I should, but I don't. Yeah, COVID kind of ruined that for me.
Oh, like, sure.
Way past that now. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you should.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.